Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Trelevate podcast. I am delighted to have Ryan Knauss back onto the show. What a treat.
It's great to be here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. I'm super excited. I actually am very excited because me and you have been planning this episode.
Yeah.
And the first part's going to be gold and money with some really good advice. But the second part is actually I get to ask you about your experience in outside sales, which we've never talked about before. So I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Let's get at it.
So I talked with Logan in our last episode. And during our last episode, we had talked about the power of a presence, being face-to-face, the value and the differing factors between inside versus outside sales. And that was gold. Amazing conversation. So today we're talking about kind of the unique benefits and hindrances of being on the road and also managing your own schedule.
Right.
That can be difficult.
Yeah.
So what do you got for me, Ryan?
I think that someone, pursuing any type of job, right, always begins first with there's a certain need, right? I need to pay the bills.
Right.
I need to stay busy. I need to learn something different, right? Everyone's motivated by something different, and usually they're taking a job because they want to get paid to support their lifestyle. Why people do outside sales or why people pursue that as a calling, I think it's why do someone, what type of sports what were your favorite sports growing up?
Cross country and track.
Okay. Why did you like those two sports?
I was really good at them, but most importantly, I had so much fun doing them.
Was cross country, were you naturally a runner always?
No, not at all.
So if you weren't naturally a runner, why did you navigate or gravitate more towards long distance running?
Right. Well, I realized that all the sports that I was really good at had a running component in them. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, what happens if I just solely focus on that?
Yeah.
Turned out it was really fun and a good team, and it was a good adventure, yeah.
So you saw value in pursuing running because you could use that for other things, right? So it was a building block, right? And that's where I think most people who get into outside sales really begin in terms of looking at it as a building block, right? There's something either in the product that they're able to work with, the addressable market, which is the customer that they're going to interact with or interface with. You also mentioned as you were sharing, it wasn't just using it as a way to build skill or ability for other sports, but it was also the camaraderie. It was the people you were around.
Right.
I think people that really thrive or have an interest in wanting to get into outside sales, it starts with, I think, what type of person are they? Are they someone who is a bit more fixed in terms of control, in terms of landscape, in terms of environment? Or are they someone who's variable, someone that likes variety? They like things changing. And I know this because I've had different job responsibilities over the years where I had a fixed position. I had to be in an office. I had to be at a desk. I had a certain level of responsibilities where people expect me to be there to attend a meeting or be part of, some element of the business. And then there's, as I mentioned, there's the variable component, which is when I was in outside sales, I was doing this for me. Right. I didn't have distractions. My focus was, who was I speaking with next? Where was my appointment? What message was I carrying? And that variable side of the day-to-day for me was really, that's the part that I love the most. That's what I loved about doing it, because I could kind of create my own work environment. There weren't four walls. It was open air. There wasn't an office. I had the chance to engage in many different office settings and locations. And when I, funny enough, started, out of college, because you just graduated, right?
I did.
Right. So you knew coming out of school, right, at some point, you're going to have to go find a place to get started.
Right.
Right. And, when I was, many moons ago where you're at getting started, I wanted to learn things that I knew I could build from, just like running. I knew that if I ran more, I could use it for other sports.
Right.
Well, right, wrong, or indifferent, coming out of school, I didn't have a lot of direction. I didn't have parents that were telling me what to do, where to go, who to interview with, what skills to build. I was coming out of school with a degree that for many people my age at the time, there weren't a lot of job opportunities. So when you're someone that has a lot of energy, doesn't want to be stuck in a space, wants to be out, wants to be moving, outside sales was a very natural fit. Like as you ran more cross country, became fun, you had great camaraderie, and it became something you loved to do.
Right.
I don't think people just get into outside sales because they love it. I think they try it because they want to learn something about themselves, and they want to learn something about a customer and how to interact and interface with a customer, because people that I've learned have made a career out of it have been people that really enjoy the problem solving component, right? Yeah. The meeting new people, the coming into new environments. And if you're kind of built with a variable type attitude where you like to be moving and busy, it's like a natural sport for someone, right? And it becomes a lot of fun.
Wow. What do you think is a distinct disadvantage for being on the road? What's a challenge that someone faces?
Well, it goes back to kind of the same thing we're talking about. Right. If you're wired and you love to swim and you're a swimmer and you get pulled out of the pool to go play basketball, that's a different sport. Right. You're an athlete, but it's a different sport. It's a different environment, different set of skills, right? And, a disadvantage for someone that doesn't like a varying or variable setting. They don't like the changing landscape, right? Or the complexity of coming into one situation and moving to another. It's a difficult environment because you really have to learn self-management.
Sure.
You have to learn self-discipline, because the only person that's pushing you is you. The only person that's managing your time or your clock is you.
Right.
So if you want to be good at it, there are definitely various principles and disciplines that you have to have in terms of self-discipline to execute, or you're not going to do well out there because you're not in a controlled environment. It's moving all the time. So, I think certain people, and again, God made people, everyone different. And that's the beauty of, what makes a great runner, right? That just because you're a great runner doesn't mean you be a great swimmer. And I think that the ability to be able to use it, and what I always encourage people is use the education as a way to learn more about yourself, but also use the experience to learn more about the business community. Because the more that you come in and out of different situations, which is, and I guess to answer your question really is like the negatives. I didn't have a lot of negatives. That's why I've been doing it for 25 years. For me, it was an adventure. And what I learned through the process of doing it shaped a greater portion of my life. Yeah. So when you have those experiences, and you're going to have those as you come in and out of different organizations you work with or different leaders you get the chance to interact with, there will be certain people that will sow into you and you'll learn something. And as you learn a little bit more, you just want to keep going deeper. You're like, I want to learn more about that. I want to learn more about people's behaviors and why do people make decisions and how do I build trust, or, how do I help guide someone to a solution? Because, if you love problem solving and helping someone solve a problem, you're going to love outside sales. If you deal with rejection or you deal with disappointment personally and it weighs on you, that's the hardest part of outside sales, because people take it as rejection personally. What I'm doing wrong, what I can't do, what I don't have the ability to be able to offer. Everyone feels the same way, so no one wants what I have. And that's not true. And those are lies that, you have to do it long enough. No different than, think about when you started running, what was a good mile for you when you first started running?
A 5-minute mile.
That's a really good mile.
I know. I started off pretty good.
That's a really good mile. How good did you get at it?
I got down to 4.5.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like that's almost like, the 4-minute mile, like there's stories written about that. The amount of people that it was considered physically you could never do it. The body could not run that fast until someone did it.
Which shows the power of the mind.
Totally.
Once someone broke it, I think 6 more people broke within the next 2 years.
Exactly.
Right after it.
Now high school kids are doing it.
Exactly.
Right? It's like because that was broken. Well, those barriers are the same thing that holds people back, not just in business, but in their lives, right? Is they get so fixed as to believing things are a certain way.
Yeah.
That and that's what I love about, the people we get the chance to work with and the value we bring to the community, not just because, for a customer, helping them make a decision when they've never really considered your product or your service. And now all of a sudden I got someone sitting across the table and they're telling me how this is applicable. And that person, they trust me to help guide them. That for me was like, oh, I like this.
Yeah.
This is fun. And that's, I think, the value you have to find in your work is how you not just help others, but then what you learn in the process about yourself.
Right.
And if you keep going down, you didn't stop at your 5-minute mile, you kept running, technique, breathing, discipline, eating, working out, and you got better.
Right.
And that's where the discipline of self-management, time management, me as a professional in outside sales, then transcends to how I can be more effective, not just working with customers, but ultimately getting things done and creating value for the people that I serve, right? Because if I can't manage my time, how can I manage other people?
Right.
Right. So those skills build upon themselves. When you start out here at Trelevate, you don't start out and stay forever in a sales role. You may move into a trainer role, an operations role, a management role, a director role, a vice president role, and there's all kinds of different positions here at Trelevate. So it's teaching you the discipline of how to manage yourself and your attitude, right, and help other people find solutions.
Do you ever feel like there's a hard line to say, you brought up many different things that, hey, outside sales, if you take rejection personally, or if you see an open door and you get excited, like those two type of characteristics, you'll lean one way and be probably more successful in outside sales.
Right.
Are there ways, what would you say to someone who's, no, I'm not going to quit, but obviously I'm not good at what I'm doing and I'm taking it the wrong way?
Well, that really comes down to a certain level of coachability. Like, do you want to learn the right way to run? Like I never knew till I got involved in track, and I was involved in my son's track team, and I was with a running coach, that this guy was like world class. This guy ran like marathons for his life. Shows me pictures of his level of discipline and what he did, obviously, when he was younger. And it was amazing that there is technique to it. It's not just running. There's technique to it. There's technique to sales. There's technique to asking good questions. There's technique to building trust. There's technique to knowing when to be quiet. Right. And when you start to learn the technique of how you establish not just trust with someone, but then the ability to guide them to a solution, that skill is transferable in everything that we do in life. Because you're always going to be solving some kind of problem, providing some kind of solution, or helping bring people from one place to another. The better you get at it, the more again, I come back to the word value, more value you create in the world. So I see so much refining that can happen. And when someone struggles or someone's not getting it, there needs to be a look in the mirror to say, am I coachable? Am I willing to learn the right technique? Can I remove some of the biases that I have? Like, some people create biases. They have biases about relationships, or biases about money, or biases about investing, or biases about, it could be anything you do, taking care of your body. So they just believe, I'll never do that, or I can't do that. And the moment your mind's closed, there's no ability to break through. So it always comes back to coachability. And then I think really modeling behaviors of other successful people, because I can have a process, but that doesn't mean all of my components will necessarily work for you. You have to be able to grab the pieces that are applicable. And then how do I apply those piece by piece? And then you'll gravitate towards the ones that come natural, or the ones that really kind of spark that aha moment. And the others you just discard. But it's that willingness to keep learning, I think, that's so critical.
That's awesome. Ryan, tell me a little about your past in outside sales. You were in it for about 13 years?
Yeah, I started in 2000 after graduation from Penn State. And I interviewed with a group about an hour and a half south of me in Philadelphia. And I'll never forget going into the interview, and it was just, it was one of the coldest, worst weather days I've ever remember in Pennsylvania. And I remember that based upon how well my preliminary interview went, I would be invited back where I could actually go do a shadow day with someone.
Right.
So I got the chance to ride along with someone in the field and see exactly what the job was all about. We were trudging through snow up to my hip. I mean, and getting stuck in pushing the car out, all these different things. And for some odd reason, it just seemed like so much fun. I was like, this is what I'm going to get paid to do. This is fun. And I will tell you, really transparency, I really didn't know what I wanted to do.
Right.
I had no idea. So I thought, well, why not go explore? Why not go look at every type of business that exists and ask myself, what do I like about it? What do I not like about it?
Right.
What would I want to see myself doing? What would I never want to see myself doing? So for me, it was just a really big, exploration. And it was also something that, funny enough, why did I get into it? Back to what you said, it was you saw value in it. But I'll tell you what, I would have never stayed doing it if I wasn't around people that I really admired. And that says a lot about any organization, is that the people you're surrounding yourself with, those individuals that day. So funny enough, I get back, I got offered the position, and it was time to leave. And my 1977 Chevy Caprice Classic was stuck in the snow. In other words, I couldn't get out. 3-4 of the guys that were still at the office came out the back door and helped push my car out. I didn't even need to ask them. They saw the wheels spinning. They all got behind, pushed me out, and I was driving away. They were all waving. They're like, "We'll see you, Ryan. It was great meeting you." And I said to myself, and I'll still never forget a couple of those guys. I'll still never forget Matt. I'll still never forget Mikey. I'll still never forget Jeff, these guys that were there. And I said, there's something different about these guys. And that was my entrance into the pool, and I never looked back.
So there's this underlying deep value of relational team building. You're not alone. This kind of locking of shields together that is found in outside sales like none other.
Yeah, it's because it's not easy, and that's what happens. I mean, think about the most significant things that you've ever done in your life, be it school or sports or, at church or with family, that were hard, and it didn't come natural, and it was difficult. But as you get through it, it like immortalizes, it bonds people together, right? So those bonds that, I had, funny enough, in my early years, at 2000, 2001, those people are still my friends. I still talk to those guys. I still go to events where we will either see each other's kids or vacation together. And it's no different than, bonds that people create, in a fraternity or on a sports team or something that was really hard. And it kind of locks them together forever. So I would always really encourage, and this is just for people in general, that it doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be hard. It needs to be something that if the people around you are encouraging, if they're sewing in, if they're educating and teaching, and they're willing to help create an environment that you can grow in, there's so much growth. But it just takes time. And that's, at the end of the day, that's part of the journey. It just doesn't need to come easy. It needs to be developmental.
Yeah. It's really cool hearing you share about your experience in outside sales, because I see that a lot in what Trelevate does and in our teams, and that unity, there's that bond, there's that challenge, but teamwork together. And even though, Trelevate, we're having sales teams across the nation, right? But everyone, I feel like we're all in the same team. And, someone could be over in Pennsylvania, but we're going to lay our life down here. We're going to stay late, make sure they're taken care of, even though they're way over there. So that's awesome. Ryan, thank you so much for your time today. It was incredible and so passing of wisdom. I appreciate it.
Joy, it's neat. It's funny to look back, and I always, want to encourage people as they get started doing something is to just not be afraid to fail. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is go at it. And it's not just that willingness of following something blindly or doing something without any direction. It's trusting, the people that are around you, the process that they're putting in front of you, and then test yourself by it, right? This doesn't, I was, a saying that someone gave to me long ago is, don't make something permanent that which is temporary, right? So it's not permanent. It's not forever, right? What it is it's a moment in time. What can you learn? What can you glean? And then how do you grow?
Right.
And if you can grow from it and it prepares you for what's next, then it's a worthwhile investment for everyone. So it's done a lot for me, and it's easy to want to help create the environment and the setting for other people to want to do well, because when you achieve at something, you want to turn around and see other people also get the same thing out of it you got.
Yeah.
So that's what makes what we do so much fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
What a treat.
It was good to see you, Bo.